What is going on, guys? It is WrestleGamia here, back with another video. Well, we already did a part 1 on this topic, but it turns out there were just too many examples to fit into one video, so we had to come back again for more wrestlers having the wrong gimmick or look by the time a WWE video game was released. It was inevitable considering how quickly things change from week to week in the world of WWE. All we know by the time this video is released, Roman Reigns will have been fired and the New Day would have split up, though we certainly hope not, because both of these would be a very bad decision. But crystal ball predictions aside, we've got some more examples of wrong gimmicks for you here, so be sure to subscribe and click on that notification bell, because today we're going to look at 9 more wrestlers whose gimmick or look changed right before a game's release. Number 1. Shorty G in WWE 2K20. 2K20 is maligned by gamers for a number of reasons, but one positive it has to its name, if anything, is that it spared us having to play as the horrendously named Shorty G when it was released on October 22nd, 2019. No, thankfully it was too late in the day to change Chad Gable's gimmick by that point, a name that was so bad it could have killed his career. The former Olympic athlete's transformation began when Vince McMahon presumably decided he was too short and wanted to have a chuckle over this fact, using Baron Corbin as a mouthpiece to refer to him as Shorty Gable on WWE television. From here, Gable, one of the most naturally talented wrestlers on the roster, cut a promo on the 18th October episode of SmackDown, calling himself Shorty G in a moment we were supposed to believe was inspirational, owning up to his limitations and not just an attempt to appease McMahon's sense of humor. Still, Gable got a good push during the King of the Ring, but his gimmick unfortunately didn't make it in 2K20. Considering he's rumored to be one of the hackers, his gimmick might change again. But this should be in time for WWE 2K22, if that is its name. Number 2. The Social Outcasts in WWE 2K17. 2K17 first hit shelves worldwide on October 11th, 2016, 3 months after the breakup of the now mostly forgotten Social Outcast stable. The Outcasts was something of a modern-day job squad, made up of WWE's perennial jobber Heath Slater, as well as Curtis Axel, Bo Dallas and Adam Rose. The faction formed on the 4th of January 2016 and were mostly used for comedy relief up until Adam Rose was released in May following a domestic abuse incident, with the group disbanding early soon after July 19th following the draft. Despite this, the group still managed to appear as a collective in 2K17, complete with Team Titantron and t-shirts, though minus Rose who didn't appear in the game. Obviously, this would be the one and only time the Social Outcasts appeared in a WWE game, so if you're really craving to see them together, then you'll need to go back to this one, especially now that every remaining member was released during the company's mass culling earlier this year, before Heath Slater even got a chance to follow his 3MB teammates' footsteps to becoming WWE Champion. Number 3. Braun Strowman in WWE 2K17. The monster among men has certainly had an eventful time in the WWE, with him only just recently beginning his first Universal Championship reign after beating Goldberg for the belt at WrestleMania 36. How memorable this title reign will be remains to be seen, but it's nice to see the company finally pulling the trigger on Strowman, as he's clearly being pegged for great things ever since he parted ways with the Wyatt family after being moved over to Raw on the July 19th, 2016 draft. While this move began his journey towards the Universal title, it wasn't one that was reflected in 2K17, as he still appeared as part of Bray Wyatt's clan in this game. With WWE teasing Wyatt rejoining forces with Bray again during their current feud, we wonder if this might not be outdated for much longer. Number 4. King Booker in WWE SmackDown vs Raw 2007. SVR 2006 was first released in Europe on November 10th, 2006, and was the first game to appear on the 7th generation of games consoles, with its arrival on Xbox 360. One thing it didn't manage to do, however, was feature Booker T's new King Booker gimmick, something that he had started using following his King of the Ring victory on May 21st that year. Whilst many have stumbled with this gimmick in the past, Booker T managed to make it his own and played himself off as a brilliantly delusional comic heel, going on to form King Booker's court and even managing to win the big gold belt for the first time since it had been rebranded from the WCW Championship to the World Heavyweight Championship belt. Unfortunately, this gimmick was represented in the following year's game, though it would be the only time as he would leave the company before SVR 2009 came out. Number 5. King Barrett in WWE 2K16. If you thought that Booker T was the only King of the Ring winner whose gimmick wasn't represented in a WWE game first time around, then we've got some bad news for you. Okay, terrible puns aside, Bad News Barrett, or Wade Barrett to go by his full kayfabe name, won the newly revived King of the Ring tournament on April 28, 2015, becoming the 19th individual to do so in the process. This long list of WWE performers included Stone Cold Steve Austin, Bret and Owen Hart, Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle amongst many other legends, which made expectations for any winner very high. Sadly, Barrett didn't quite go on to meet these expectations, but in his defense, he was saddled with the pretty awful King Barrett gimmick, which actually made things harder for him. Could you imagine if Steve Austin had to be forced to wear a cape and crown? Well, anyway, the gimmick wouldn't be represented in 2K16 when it first released in North America on October 27, 2015. Now in this game, he still went by his old gimmick of Bad News Barrett, which was far more entertaining anyway. Why they just didn't let him keep this gimmick, we'll never know. Number 6. Randy Orton in SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. There were clearly already big things planned for Randy Orton when he debuted with WWE. You can see that in the way he was presented on television. He hadn't been on the roster long before Triple H took notice of him and snapped him up for his Evolution stable on the January 20th, 2003 edition of Raw. It was here that Randy's career really stepped up into the next gear, with him going on to become the youngest ever world champion in WWE only a year later. While Evolution were represented in SmackDown Here Comes the Pain when it hit shelves on October 27, 2003 in North America, Orton still appeared in his pre-stable ring gear, which was slightly disappointing. It's not a big thing, but it's a shame nonetheless, as Here Comes the Pain is so close to being a perfect wrestling game, and this is one of its very few minor blemishes. Number 7. John Morrison in SmackDown vs Raw 2008. John Morrison's recent return to the WWE has proved that he's one of the most underrated workers in WWE history. Even with him now being 40, he's still able to put on better and more athletic performances than half of the roster. When SmackDown vs Raw 2008 was first released in Europe on November 9, 2007, he had just been repackaged from the tag team wrestler Johnny Nitro he was working as before. This new gimmick, clearly inspired by Jim Morrison, coincided with him receiving a big push within the company, as it happened only a few weeks later after he won the ECW title from CM Punk at June's Vengeance Night of Champions pay-per-view, a match which was originally meant to be won by Chris Benoit, but he had no-showed the event for obvious reasons. Sadly, in the game, Morrison still appeared as Johnny Nitro. Number 8. The Miz in SmackDown vs Raw 2010. Much like his former tag team partner 2 years previous, The Miz's gimmick was out of date by the time SmackDown vs Raw 2010 was released on 20th of October 2009. Here, he was still portrayed as his Miz and Morrison character, while in real life he had recently made a somewhat more serious shift, debuting his I Am Awesome gimmick on the August 10th edition of Raw after beating Eugene while disguised under a mask as the Calgary Kid. After the match was over, Miz removed said mask and cut his now famous promo line,
"Actually, the winner of this match, The Miz, and I'm awesome!"
starting off a gimmick which would lead him into the WWE title and main event of WrestleMania. It's also worth noting that this is the match where he first used the skull-crushing finale as a finisher, so it ended up being a critical moment in his career. Sadly though, not one which was recognized in that year's game. And number 9. Bayley in WWE 2K20. Bayley should have been the female John Cena. She was an obvious babyface and merchandise seller for young girls that it seemed impossible for WWE to screw it up. How we underestimated them. After floundering on the main roster for years, Bayley was forced to turn heel for the first time in her career on the September 18th, 2019 edition of SmackDown. Unfortunately, this meant that when 2K20 was released a month later, her new look and entrance music were not represented, with her instead still in full babyface mode, complete with hugs and wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tubemen in tow. Maybe in the next game, we should get the full-on heel Bayley. That's if she still is heel by 2021. But there you have it guys, a look at 9 more wrestlers whose gimmick or look changed right before a game's release. There's still many more and we can do a part 3 on this. Let us know if you want us to cover that. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling video game content.